Welcome to the Determined People podcast. We are committed to spreading encouragement, strength, and hope to a world in desperate need of it. Everywhere you look in today's culture, you see stories of remarkable people experiencing remarkable success. Our show focuses on the backstories of everyday, relatable people who have achieved greatness in their lives. We focus on the story behind what we see in the world. Our hope is that you find yourself in these stories, that you say, if that person made it, so can I. And now, our host, John Harrell.
Hello, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here. I have a favor to ask before we get started. Would you hit the subscribe button? That way, every 2 weeks when we put out a message of encouragement, strength, and hope, you'll get it directly sent to your inbox. And if you're on audio podcast as well, go hit the subscribe button there. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, on iHeart, Google, Amazon, wherever you get your audio, we're there. Every day I put up a 30 to 40 second message of inspiration. And it's not rah-rah stuff. It's something as simple as be kind to everyone because, even those that don't deserve our kindness, we don't know what lies beneath. So let's be kind to everyone. Just something like that to help you get through your day. So thank you, and let's get started. Zig Ziglar once wrote that you can get everything you want in life by helping enough other people get what they want. That summarizes our guest today. Billy Bob Harris is a facilitator. He is a connector. He truly connects the dots in a way that I have never seen before. He knows everybody, I think, and he's one of the nicest people that you will ever meet. So, Billy Bob, welcome to the show.
Fine, thank you. I'm glad to be here, John.
Thank you for coming on.
I'll give you a check later for the nice words, okay?
A big one, I hope. But no,
Okay.
no, I'm just kidding. We don't do that.
I understand.
But this is our Thanksgiving show, and you're the perfect guest to have on here because you put up daily inspirations on your Instagram and Facebook and probably a bunch of other social media I don't know about. Why do you do it?
Well, John, I think I was not a good student. You remember Reader's Digest?
Absolutely.
They had even when I was a little small boy, we would get Reader's Digest, and I'd go to the section that's quotable quotes. Mm-hmm. And those were so inspiring, even though I wasn't a good student when I was 10 or 12 years old, and I've been collecting sayings all along that in the vein of your show of encouragement for me, and I hope for other people.
Yes.
But I was raised in this fabulous little community, 100 miles north of Amarillo. I'm an only child. My father was an only child. We lived out in the country. And I would get that and read that every time. And I started collecting sayings. So, and by the way, I guess when I was 2 years old is when I first started to experiencing a drug experience. My parents drugged me to Sunday school. They drugged me to church. They drugged me to MYF. They drugged me to prayer meeting. Let me tell you something. The church door opened. We were there. That was about our only entertainment.
Well, that's a good drug to do. We need more of that today. But I think you'll agree. We live in a divided world, and it seems to be more divided. There's so many good people out there with so many great stories, and you and I both try to connect to others. We try to be bridge builders, not bridge destroyers, and it's getting harder and harder to do that. But I appreciate what you do. Now, you really are a Billy Bob. You're not a William Robert, or
pure
that's your
Billy
given
Bob.
name.
One grandfather was named William, the other Robert, and they just said Billy Bob. I'm pure Billy Bob. Okay.
You mentioned that little town you grew up in, Groover, Texas. Tell us about growing up. You grew up post Depression.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
The best way I can say it's a fabulous community. Mm-hmm. My peepaw, my granddad was a farmer. My dad was a farmer. And I grew up on a farm. As I said, I did not particularly like farming. When we was out there, I was kind of isolated. And I had a great experience there. Schooling was great. I think I had 22, 25 in my graduating class. And when I got ready to graduate from there, I went to UNT, North Texas at the time. And I went from a class of 22, 25 to 1,000 students. And somebody said, wow, Billy Bob, they'll just eat you alive. John, I was born for college. I got to play with more kids. But back to that little town. I still stay in touch with people back there. It is so... One experience, I lost my dad not too long ago. But I was up there seeing him, and I would fly to Amarillo and rent a car and drive up there. And so he needed some groceries. So I went down to the grocery store. I was the only car on the block. And I pulled up there, and I went in and got some groceries. And there's a big, good-looking high school boy there. Do you remember when they used to take your groceries and carry them to your car?
Sure.
And he said, here, I'll get that. I said, oh, I can get it. He said, no, that's my job. And I said, okay. And think about his statement. I said, okay. He knew it was the only car out there. And I said, okay, it's unlocked. He said, oh, did you want it in the trunk? He never thought about locking a car.
Yeah.
That was kind of the theme, the culture, I guess you could say, of that. Miss that town. Miss the people. I stay in touch with them. I'm very, very happy I came to Dallas. And but I do appreciate those people and think about that. And I was blessed to grow up in that culture.
It's great to know that you can still find towns that you can unlock, leave your car unlocked, leave your door unlocked. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a little about my hometown. And even after I got out of North Texas, I went back to farm. I guess the saddest day of my life was when I graduated from college. My daddy said, I think I'm going to have to go up there and burn the school building down to get you out of it. But I went back there, still kind of naive. I didn't want to farm, John. I didn't want to farm. A much, much older guy was talking to me. He was 27 or 28 years old, okay? He said, Billy Bob, you don't want to farm like your granddad and your dad do. And I said, no. Here's how naive I was. He said, you ought to go to the big city and be a stockbroker. I said, you mean move all the way to Amarillo? He said, no, you ought to go to Dallas. So I came here, and it was a very good move for me.
Yeah. Who was that guy? How'd you meet him?
A guy named Rod Barkley. He was much, much older than I was. I looked up to him.
He had wisdom over years.
Rod Barkley, big influence on my life. And he may not want the credit, but he was a big influence on my life, okay?
You mentioned your dad, JC here, and I casually knew JC, great man. I mean, just like you, always had a smile on his face, friendly and outgoing, had charisma and personality, and a wonderful guy. But when you went to tell your dad that you were going to move to the city and be a stockbroker, you didn't tell him. You asked him because you respected him so much.
Boy.
Tell us about that conversation.
Man, John, I'd been thinking about this for some time. I didn't stay up there and farm maybe 6 months, but I was thinking about it, and I was out there on a tractor. And it was hot. It was August, and the wind was blowing. And I saw my dad driving by in a pickup. I waved at him. Shut the tractor off, got over there in the shade. And I said, Daddy, you're a farmer. Peepaw's a farmer. And I can farm this land. But I really don't want to farm. He said, well, what do you want to do, Billy Bob? I said, I want to go to Dallas and be a stockbroker. He said, don't people make money off of don't stockbrokers make money off of people they know? And I said, yes. He said, who do you know? And I said, I know one person. His name's Don Norman. He was an assistant cashier at one bank. and my dad said, Billy Bob, if that's what you want to do, I think you ought to try it. And if you don't like it, you can always come back. I knew it broke his heart. But that's it. He wanted to go. He wanted to go try it. Mm-hmm. And so I've been here ever since.
Two questions. One, do you feel like part of your motivation to be, because you were a great success at H.E. Edwards, but do you feel like part of your drive was so you wouldn't disappoint your father?
Yeah, mainly. But I think everybody kind of has the drive to do, maybe not be the best, be the best they can be. Sure. And that may somewhere in the back of my mind. Yes, sure. It might be. I had my father for a long time. Matter of fact, Peepaw drove himself to the hospital when he was 94 years old, laid down and died, and it's the first time he'd ever been in the hospital. Wow. And my dad died one day before he was 97.
Okay.
So I happen to have some good genes. They probably took care of theirs a little better than I've taken care of mine. But
Well, you look great, but that's interesting. Your people, I bet he was not born in a hospital.
no, he was. And surprisingly, my daddy was. He was born in Amarillo, St. Anthony's Hospital. I know I can remember that. I remember things like that, and then go outside and forget where I parked my car.
Right.
Okay.
And one thing I want to point out to our listeners is this. This is our Thanksgiving show. And several years back, Billy Bob recorded a Thanksgiving message for KVIL radio here in Dallas. And we're going to attach that to the very end of the show, so be sure and stick around. You don't want to miss it. That one will hit you right in the heart. And it summarizes succinctly, beautifully, poetically even, what Thanksgiving really is all about. So don't turn the TV off or the YouTube off after that. You want to hear it. So, but what was Dallas like? I mean, going from a town of what how big was Greenville?
800.
Okay.
800.
To a town of 1 million plus people. Was it overwhelming? I mean, how overwhelming was it, I guess is the question.
It was fabulous. I mean, now we had a picture show in Gruber for a little while till I got in about third, fourth grade. But I mean, it was overwhelming, and it's wonderful. And there's more people. And I remember the first, how I got hired by A.G. Edwards, I don't know, but I did. And I lived on Cedar Springs. And the first morning I went to work, I called a cab.
Okay.
And I got in the back of the cab, and I got me a little pad. Okay, Cedar Springs, go down Herschel, take a right on Cedar Springs, go down the left, take a left on Akron. I didn't know anything. I was overwhelmed.
That was the early version of Google Maps, I guess, right?
Yeah. And then you had to do 6 months on the job training. I had a desk. It was in the mail room. And I don't think the word gopher had been invented then, but basically when somebody needed something, I was a gopher.
Yep.
I went and then I studied back there. Then you studied for 6 months, and then you went to New York to take your test. I don't know. Fortunately, I passed it. But anyway, I think at one time, we had about 50 people in our office. That's after we were in the Vaughn building to start with, and then we moved over to Akron. And in Akron, we had, I think, there's a big office, had about 50 people in there. And you mentioned KVIL. John, after about 2 years, I was somewhere in the lower 10% of the production. And I don't know, that farm might have been looming in the back of my mind. It made me hustle a little bit more. That's not true. But anyway, Ron Chapman, there was a little fledgling radio station at the time in Highland Park named KVIL. And it was basically run by a guy named Ron Chapman. And I was at a party one time, and Ron met me, and he said, Billy Bob, I'd like you to do the stock market report for us, audio on the radio. And I said, okay. He said, when do you want to start? I said, in the morning. Now, I'd never been on the radio. I didn't have any speech classes, as you can tell. I still need to go back probably. But so the next morning, I was so impressed because I was be on the radio. So I wanted to be Walter Cronkite because I was on the news. I hadn't even got off of that phone, and the other line lit up, and it was Ron Chapman. I don't know if I can say what he said to me.
You may say it.
He said, Billy Bob, that is total bullshit. I thought, my radio career never lasted very long. He said, what I want is you. So that afternoon, I called and I said, that puppy's going south. It's going right straight in the dumper. And it worked. And so for the next 18 years, I did about 10 or 12 spots a day.
A day?
A day. I didn't tell people what to buy. I just reported what it was doing. Sure. Of course, we didn't have we had bought stocks, bonds, and commodities in. We didn't have all these derivatives and stuff like that and all these different platforms. So that was to say, I couldn't exaggerate what that did for my career.
Put you on the map, and everybody who's been in Dallas for any time at all knows who Ron Chapman is or was. He's sadly passed away, but he was a force of nature here in Dallas media. No question about it. So there's a funny story about how you met Craig Morton, the former Dallas Cowboys quarterback. Would you share that with our audience?
Yeah. I don't know how long I hadn't been in Dallas very long, but Craig was, I believe, the number one draft choice for the Dallas Cowboys. And so I'd been here, I don't know, 3 years, I guess. And that was about 3 or 4 3 or 4 airlines based here with a lot, we called them stewardess at the time instead of flight attendants. And this real pretty girl, I wanted to get a date with her. And of course, it took me 2 or 3 weeks to do it. And the only time I get a date with her was on a Sunday night because she had a lot of options. So I go and I get all dressed up, it's on a Sunday evening. And so I go down, and here's this apartment house. Of course, I had my notes written down, C34 or whatever apartment she was in. And I was in there, and there wasn't anybody else around. And here's this tall, good-looking guy walking around, and he had a little note, too, and we were kind of meandering around. Well, we meandered up the same steps in the same direction to the same apartment. He says, "Hi, how you doing?" Very friendly. I said, "Hi, how you doing?" I said, "Fine." "Oh, well, he's probably got a date with her roommate," something like that. So rang the doorbell. She came to the door and realized she probably forgot all about me when Craig Morton had called. And she said, "Oh, hi. I guess there's been some kind of confusion." Well, I was smart enough to know where she was going to go. I said, "Okay." I said, "That's fine, no problem." Craig said, "Oh, no, let's all go out together. Let's go out together." I said, "Okay." So he had a Lincoln, a Mark III Lincoln, and it had a tape player in it. Holy moly, this kid from Groover. So we all three went out and had a really good time. Of course, that was the beginning of a long, which still exists, friendship. And different stories about Craig were true. I was a big fan of Elvis. And this is 4 or 5 years later, and I was going with this girl named Susie. She was really pretty and really nice, and she was a school teacher. And I was going out with her, and it came up maybe we ought to start dating other people. But big hot shot idea here. Let's don't ask any questions about anything. And she said, "Okay." John, all of a sudden, she started leaving on the weekends. I thought, where's she going? It's kind of a hot shot idea not to ask any questions. So anyway, Elvis was coming to town. I think Jack Beckman was managing Memorial Auditorium. So the day that he was here, Craig lost his job to Roger Staubach. It was a big battle. Tom Landry said it's the hardest decision he ever made. And it was on the front page of the Dallas Morning News, not the sports page, the front page. So, man, old Craig was kind of down. I said, "Come on, Craig, come on. Elvis, I got 2 tickets on the 10th row. Come on, let's go." So I'm going to take Susie. Let's go. Just you and I go. He said, "Okay." So we go walking in. Craig's this tall, good-looking, handsome, tan guy, And you hear people, "There's Craig Morton, there's Craig Morton." And Craig did not like the spotlight. He wasn't one of those big. So we go in and we sit down, and the comedian is warming everybody up. And so we sat there, and he said, the comedian is saying, "A guy walked up to me today and said, 'Hey, I'd like to be your manager.' And I said, 'What's the matter? Don't you have a job?' He said, 'No, I lost mine.' I said, 'What's your name?' He said, 'Craig Morton.' Well, Craig just scooted down in the seat. And I reached over and I said, 'Come on, Craig. Come on. Don't worry about it. Man, it's just a comedian. Come on, man. We're going to go see Elvis. I didn't bring Susie. Come on. Let's have a good time.' Elvis comes out and sings about 3 or 4 songs, takes the microphone off the podium. Goes trying to say, 'Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be my next recording. It's called The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. And it's going out to you, Susie.' And Craig Morton and I stand up, and there's my girlfriend on the front row. Craig reached over and said, 'Don't worry about Billy Bob. It's just Elvis Presley.'
Shake it off.
Yeah. Go ahead. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Roger Staubach famously said that he really liked you even though you like Craig Morton better.
Yeah, he wrote that in one of my brochures, and they were good friends, and Roger's a good friend, a guy that I admire so much.
Well, they're both great competitors.
Oh, yeah, both of them, yeah.
And honestly, it shows the character of Craig Morton to say, hey, let's just all three go out.
Oh, yeah.
Took a difficult situation and made it
heck, I was already headed to the street. I mean, I knew what her choice was going to be.
You can't beat those 8-track tape players either. Yeah. So I want to move into really get to the theme of the show is bouncing back from adversity. And, you've had your struggles as well.
Oh, sure.
Everybody, we don't get out of this life with it struggle-free. I think it was Mark Twain said, two things were certain, death and taxes. He left out struggles because that's universal. And some people hide it better than others, but you've had your share of them. And what have you done? How have you bounced back from some of the darkest moments in your life?
Well, because of Ron Chapman, I had a lot of publicity. And doing 10 or 12 spots a day on the #1 radio station in town will get you a lot. I did. I had some very dark moments. I lied under oath to protect a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And I was used to giving the news, but not making it. And I had a real hiccup there. And it was very embarrassing what I did, but I did do it. I lied under oath. Mm-hmm. And it was to protect a friend. And so I went to what they call a club fed. People that call it that haven't been there. But I did go to a club fed. But what I'd like to say, you asked me how I overcome this.
Sure.
When I got out, my dad was up in that little town. He said, I'm going to go down and see Billy Bob this weekend. He's getting off probation. And somebody said, somebody's having a party for me. He said, how many people are going to be there? And my dad said, I think 200 or 300 people. And this guy said, boy, that really speaks well of Billy Bob because all of his friends are sticking up for him. My daddy said, no, it speaks well for his friends.
Oh, wow.
So I had a lot of support there. And, I mean, like I told you, I was raised in the church. And I think being raised in there's something, even though when you're a young boy, I can't recall one sermon that I heard when I was a kid. But there's something kind of sticks in there. And I had my spiritual beliefs. And so I came back, and let me tell you something. The day I got back, Ron Chapman put me right back on the air.
Did he really?
Even though I went. But it's that type of support. Sure. And I had a lot. As far as I know, I didn't lose a friend over that. And like my daddy said, that speaks well for his friends.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when you said that, what your dad said, gave me chills.
Yeah.
That is a testament to the character of the people that you surrounded yourself with.
It's true. It's true. That's
because you were a high-profile personality in Dallas, Texas. Everybody wanted to be around you, but those that were in your sphere stayed with you.
Yes, every one of them did. Every one of them did. And I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed for that. Please know that I'm blessed. Okay.
You have a faith life. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. As I explained, I was raised in the church. And when I came down here, I was raised in our little Methodist church. And I joined the Lover's Lane Methodist Church when I first got down here. Mm-hmm. And it's a very active church with a lot of different. Of course, everybody's got their challenges now. Every church has got their challenges. Mm-hmm. But the motto of this church is loving people into relationship with Jesus Christ. It's a very active church. And it means a lot to me. And it was started by a guy named Tom Chip. Mm-hmm. Don Benton was there 17 years. And Stan Copeland's there now. And it's a very vibrant church. Although the COVID we used to have 3 services. 2 of them were seat 1,000 people. Now, a lot of people watch it on air, but it's a very active church. And I can say that's my foundation. Now, you talk about dark times. That's not the only dark time I ever had. About 2 or 3 years ago, I got diagnosed with bladder cancer. Man, let me tell you something. When you hear that C word, whew, that's something that happened to somebody else. I didn't smoke, worked out every day, And that was a very trying time for me. But I can say, John, that people's prayers and is my faith as strong as it should be? No, but it's growing and it helped me through those tough times. Okay.
That's great. You know, I don't know that everybody's faith is as strong as it should be. I mean, even look at the disciples, right? They spent 3 years with Jesus, saw countless miracles he did,
Yeah.
yet when he got arrested, they ran.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know what the guy can do, but you still run. And I think I think that faith trip, you know, people say journey, I say trip. Sometimes life is a trip down the yellow brick road. Sometimes it's an acid trip, right? But that trip is something that is a constant practice every day. Get tested and pass the test, or sometimes fail. But no, I think that is awesome. Yeah. Funny thing is about Lovers Lane United Methodist Church, it's not on Lovers Lane.
Yeah, no, it was started. It's amazing. It was on Lovers Lane in Dallas, and the church grew so much. It's on the corner of Northwest Highway and Inwood Road now.
Yeah.
But,
So let's talk about you and Kenny Rogers were great friends.
yeah.
Tell us about that. He passed away. I'm sure that you mourned that, and here's a picture of you and Kenny together. But you traveled the world with him.
Oh yeah, it was. You know, there was a nightclub over on Greenville Avenue. It's now a motorcycle shop, I think. But Angus Wynn and some more people started, and they had good entertainment there. So I was in there one time, and there was a new group called, I don't know if it was called just the First Edition, I think.
It started off as First Edition.
First Edition, before they started naming Kenny Rogers in the First Edition. And so he was kind of the lead singer of it. So they were doing 4 or 5 sets. Mm-hmm. And so between one set, I don't think they had a dressing room. Kenny was standing back there by the bathroom. And I walked by and I said, "Hey, man, sure do like your music." And he said, "Thank you." I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Kenny Rogers." And I said, "You from here?" He said, "No, I'm from Houston." I said, "Okay." So we had a little chat. He said, "What do y'all do?" That's when the club closed at 12. And I had a lot more energy then than I do now. And I said, "Well, we generally go to my house and party a little bit." He said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "So just get your car and follow us and come on over." He said, "I don't have a car." I said, "Okay, you can go with me." That's the way it started. And we've been friends ever since. And that's before he became the mega star that he was. But, oh, man, gosh, what he I hate to say afforded, and not like money, but what the opportunity that I had with him. I'm a kid from Groover, Texas, which I love, but I went all over the world with Kenny. Mm-hmm. Went to Africa, went to Zurich, went to some concerts, And I can tell you, from the time that I met him, at Soul City was the name of that club, till he became the megastar that he was. John, he never changed one iota. Not one iota.
And that's character, because character, money and fame and other things can change some people.
Yeah.
But they're not grounded in character. But that is character and speaks well of him. But I knew that you guys were very, very close friends. Now, you told us a funny story before we went on camera about you were interviewing Marilyn McCoo.
Oh, my gosh.
A live interview. Would you tell that story?
No, yeah. We were talking about mistakes. Kenny Rogers' group was named Kenny Rogers in the First Edition. And Billy Davis and Marilyn McCoo had a group called The Fifth Dimension. And they were really popular. I can't name all the songs. Up, Up, and Away. And they were really big.
They're megastars, yes.
Yeah. And so it was live TV. And I was interviewing her. And she's gorgeous. And she's sitting there and she had a short skirt on. And I was trying to really focus in. And her group was called The Fifth Dimension. And so I was talking to her. And I said, "Well, Marilyn, tell me this. When did y'all start the First Edition?" And she reached over on live camera and got me both my cheeks and said, "I don't know, Billy Bob. You can ask your friend Kenny Rogers." Yeah, my face lit up. They didn't need any lights. My face lit up so much, yeah. But
you can't edit live TV.
It's hard to edit that, man. Let me tell you something. Yeah, sure is.
Oh my gosh. Years ago you wrote something, and I think I couldn't find it in my Google search, but I think it's called What I've Learned. Do you remember that? Lessons I've Learned or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was a nice long thing, but and a lot of that, from what you shared with me, came from your dad. And a lot of your messages today.
A lot of his stuff, yeah.
The
I mean,
sayings
he
from
had
JC.
those little statements that I thought was so funny then. And I never forget, he said, son, I'm going to tell you where you can always find a helping hand. I said, where's that, Daddy? He said, right at the end of your sleeve. And he had these things. And he said, he had this great saying when something happened. It is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't. And he'd said, life, son, you're in charge of your attitude. So I don't ever see you pointing any fingers in any circumstances. It's up to you. He had stuff like that. But one of the more humorous ones that turned out to be so true, and that was after I got down here in Dallas. He said, son, when you're down there in Dallas and you get ready to get on one of those big city and you get ready to get on one of those big freeways. I said, yes. And he said, son, never miss a chance. Go to the bathroom first. And boy, have I found out that's true. Yeah.
I do that before I get on I-35 coming up here. So
Yeah.
yes, I get that.
Yeah.
Oh, those are awesome. I love that. Funny thing is, I have sons that are 29, 27 now, and they're wonderful, character-filled young men. But growing up, I would not allow them to say what I think is the worst four-letter word in the English language, and that is can't. So I just say won't. It means the same thing. And to this day, they will not say the word I can't. They avoid it.
Great. That's great. That's great.
I think it is the worst four-letter word in the English language,
Yeah.
and it's self-defeating. But, now you're with Beta Business Development, and tell us about what you're doing now.
In real life, what I do in real life, my mission statement is I help create profitable connections between productive people. I am a connector, a facilitator. I'm not a consultant. I don't go into a company and tell them how to run their business. Mm-hmm. If a company is looking for something, maybe I can connect them with the solution. If you're looking for a widget manufacturer, I'd find you one. If you're looking for a widget distributor, I'd find you one. If you're looking for a chain to sell your widgets through, I'd find you one. I don't look at myself as a money raiser. More with established companies, and it's really in business development. I had somebody that was looking for anything that would keep a fleet running, cars, trucks, airplanes, whatever it is, a fleet running. And so I took them to Interstate Battery. Interstate Battery was glad to talk to us because they got to sell their batteries. That's a real live example.
Yeah, you're the connector.
Yeah, a connector. That's what I do. And of course, John, you got to be careful about who you connect with who. That you got to be. If I have a long suit, it's probably, I think, judging people and what they can do. Mm-hmm. Now, have I made mistakes in that? Yes, I've been very disappointed in some people that I connected. But overall, I think I'm comfortable with my judge of people and what they can produce and what they can bring to the table. And I have to be very careful before I bring them to this table. And I do a lot of vetting. But that's what I do. And there's not a terminology like an accountant, a lawyer, or something like that. And the best thing I can come up with is a connector, a facilitator. Like I said, my mission statement is I help create profitable connections between productive people. I'm really not the end to answer to anything, but I'll go find it and connect it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And isn't it great when you can connect great people?
Oh, my gosh. What a thrill. Man, when you find something like that. And I do this. I've introduced a large number of people that got married. Mm-hmm. That's not what it, but I do this to not only in life, but as a career. If I'm successful, I participate in some way. And that's the way that I do. Now, I'm out there at Beta Business Development there's 4 of us. I'm the only one who can't write a big check. But they're fabulous people. I'm not on salary. I pay my rent. I couldn't live without Julie. Julie is my assistant, and I don't like that word assistant. Julie is more than assistant.
She compliments you.
Oh,
it's complimentary. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know how I could function without Julie, but I'm responsible for her salary, the rent, and everything else. So I got to hustle, and I hope I can always hustle. Somebody asked me, said, "Billy Bob, are you ever going to retire?" I said, "I sure hope not. I'm going to just
retire from what?
Yeah,
you're having a great time, right?
That's
And
right.
again,
I
connecting
love
great
what
people.
I'm doing. Yeah,
Sure. We do have a link to your website, billybobharris.com, up on screen. And people, I encourage you, reach out to Billy Bob. If you have a project you'd like to have advanced, facilitate a meeting with somebody that might make your project go. He's the easiest person to get the word yes out of. And I encourage you to reach out to him if you have some. Billy Bob, I have one last question for
Okay.
you. How do you want to be remembered?
Wow. I've never been asked that question before. It's a great question. I'd like to be remembered as a very loyal person that added value to people's lives. Everybody that I come in contact with, I'd like to be remembered of adding value to their life. That's a simple answer.
Yeah, it's a very truthful answer. And it's like you leave people better than you found them.
That's right. That's right.
And that's a gift. You got a great gift for connecting, meeting people, remembering people, and it served you well. And I hope it serves you well for another 20, 30, 40, however many years.
Ready.
How many
I'm
ever
ready.
years you've got. Yes.
Yeah, I'm ready. Somebody asked my father one time, said, "Don't you want to go to heaven?" He said, "Yeah, but not today." So, yeah, I hope I've got a lot of runway in front of me.
Yeah. I always say, I'm not afraid to die. I'm just not ready.
Yeah.
There's a lot I want to accomplish here. And I want to say thank you for coming on, for taking the time. The
I
greatest
appreciate
gift,
you having me on your show, John.
The greatest gift you can give somebody is your time, and because you only have so much of it. And I appreciate it. And it is an honor to know you. And I mean that with all my heart.
I appreciate it, John. Thank you very much.
That is our show for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. And don't forget, hang on. You want to hear the Thanksgiving message because it talks about really the essence of what Thanksgiving is about. And it will leave you better than you are right now. So thank you for being here. And I'll be back tomorrow on the audio podcast with another 30 to 40 second inspirational message. Everybody, until then, be well.
Hello, my name is Billy Bob Harris. Years ago, I was doing a report for a radio station here in Dallas. I guess it was about a week before Thanksgiving. They asked us to think about and be able to say something about what Thanksgiving means to us personally. Well, I was raised in a little town 100 miles north of Amarillo, right up top of the Panhandle, and town 800 people. We lived out in the country. I was an only child, but my mother and father and I would get to come in to Peepaw's house on Thanksgiving. My Peepaw said something to me back then that as the years go by is even more relevant now. And every year it goes by, it becomes more relevant. Here's what Thanksgiving means to me.
The task we undertake here at KVIL is to leave a mental picture in our listener's mind as we touch a certain emotion. Another of this year's most successful tasks was the KVIL Thanksgiving Special, a complement of holiday thoughts and treasures shared by some of the KVIL staff. Again, the hands-down winner and tear duct generator, Billy Bob Harris.
I am still learning about Thanksgiving. I grew up in the Panhandle of Texas, a little town named Grover. And if you have ever been in the Panhandle of Texas during November, December, January, February, I hope it was as a tourist because it gets very cold up there and the wind blows a lot. And it's not very entertaining. Let me see. It's not Highland Park, okay? I'm an only child and my father's an only child. And we lived out in the country. And we had a very warm, loving family. On Thanksgiving, we would come in town. That was a big deal. That was already after the picture show was closed. But Peepaw and Pauline, my grandparents, lived in town. And when you open the door and you walk in, there is a feeling that always came over me. You were loved. And it's not that I wasn't loved at my house, but I mean, you were just there was something, is in the air. My granddad smoked a pipe. There was always that smell in Peepaw's house. Pauline was everybody's, grandma was the finest cook. I'm just like everybody else. But when you walk in that house, you smell that pipe. You smell all of that fresh baked food. And you just know that everything's going to be okay. There is a spirit that dwells there. You didn't have to pick up your clothes. You didn't have to clean up your room. You could play. You could go down to the basement. You could hear Peepaw's stories. You could eat all you want to. And it was love, and everything was fine. So my granddad was sitting there one day, and I said, Peepaw, I just love to come down here to this house on Thanksgiving. I said, this is Thanksgiving. He said, what do you mean? I said, this is Thanksgiving. He said, no, Billy Bob, let me tell you. He said, Thanksgiving is not in the house. Thanksgiving is in the heart. Well, I thought, my granddad's 85 years old. And I thought, well, maybe he's losing his grip. I said, he doesn't know what he's, but Peepaw's good. It's okay. And I said, I went over to my daddy. And I said, Daddy, Peepaw said something, and I don't know what it means. And he said, well, what did he ask you? And I said, well, he asked me what Thanksgiving was. And I told him it was being in this house with this family. And Peepaw heard us talking, I guess. And he said, well, what I was explaining to you was that you don't have to be with your family to be with your family. And, of course, that totally went over my head. Okay, that was 25 years ago when I was 10, 12 years old. My granddad died about 8 years ago at the age of 95. I had a full, productive life. Pauline died about 6 years ago. And as you know, I lost my mom about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. So this particular Thanksgiving, I thought, I'm going to invite Daddy down here to Dallas. And we got a world of friends here. This is really my home now. But this was the first Thanksgiving I had never been home, but I knew it was better, or I felt it was better that my father didn't stay up there either. He and my mother had been married 48 years. So Daddy came down here, and we had some wonderful invitations. Julie's parents, the Don Williams family, had invited us over. The Dackel family, Floyd Dackel's mother and father, they invited us over. The Ridenhours, Mike Montgomery, the Bill Dobbs family. And we got to go to all these people's houses. I think it was the Williams family. We walked in. There was that feeling. There was love. There was warm, friendly faces. There was a glow about everybody. There was the smell of freshly baked food. And I think somebody lit a pipe. And I smelled that pipe. And it hit me right then. You don't have to be with your family to be with your family. And it's not in the house, it's in the heart.
Billy Bob, I hope the price of gold is up because you're worth your weight in it.